ministers came into the doorsteps this morning. They seemed like they were in agreement about the need to spend more on defense. Many expressed pleasure that the developments in the Mideast, that there seemed to be a ceasefire on the horizon. And then Secretary Hegseth this morning called the alliance a paper tiger. He said that the alliance's reluctance to get involved in Iran was shameful, and so on. You just said that you're happy he does this. But what was the mood in the room afterwards? Was this helpful, especially in the run-up to Ankara?
Well, I'm not sure you completely give credit to what Hegseth was saying, but I'm not sure about the... Okay, I'll leave that with you. You will listen carefully to what he said. But what's more important is this. Allies are very happy with the deal on Iran, because for NATO it has always been clear, and we commend President Trump for getting here, that Iran cannot have his hands on a nuclear capability. This is now severely degraded, that we have to prevent Iran getting a ballistic missile capability, which is a threat to the region and to Europe and to the wider world, severely degraded by the United States, what the United States has done over the last couple of months. And obviously also important that the Strait of Hormuz opens up and the freedom of navigation is restored. We have heard many allies saying we want to help there. You have seen the G7 statement also completely supporting what the American President Trump is doing here. I think there's widespread support and we are in agreement. What this is about, from what I hear from what he was saying, but also from my conversations with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War of the United States, is, again, this balance. Acknowledging a lot is happening, but you look at the total numbers, it's really impressive. But still, I want to maintain the pressure on those allies still not there, needing to do more. That's one. Second, given the fact that Europe and Canada are stepping up, it is only logical that the US again, and they do this over time regularly, reviews its force posture. But I'm not going to comment on every word every ally is saying. I never do that.
Okay, let's go to the back. Rai.
Who's speaking?
Marilu Lucrezio, Rai.
Hi.
Italian television.
Hi.
Italy, hi, thank you. Italy has announced for Hormuz it would provide as a contribution to a demining mission. What's your comment and what NATO wants to do for the freedom of navigation? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So what we are seeing now is that thanks to the hard work by the American administration, nuclear degraded, ballistic missile capacity of Iran degraded, extremely important, long-standing positions of NATO that Iran should not have these capabilities, plus now the perspective of the Strait of Hormuz opening up. What the French and the Brits are doing, they are leading this coalition of, I think it's over 40 countries at the moment, of countries who have capabilities which can be helpful here, particularly when it comes to demining. You know, the US is very strong, but two things they miss. One is icebreakers. You don't need them in the Strait of Hormuz. And the other thing is demining, and you need that now in the Strait of Hormuz. And Europe has that capacity, that capability, well, really big. And we have seen over the last couple of weeks that many European nations are pre-positioning these assets close to theater. What the G7 leaders, including, of course, 6 of them in NATO, including the American president, concluded in the G7 meeting, but this was also clearly the tone of discussion of the debate today, is the necessity to do everything together to make sure the Strait opens up. And that discussion is ongoing, what exactly that will mean, how this demining will be done. For NATO to play a role there is not yet foreseen. It is, of course, out of NATO area, but if NATO can be helpful in any way, as I said yesterday, of course, we are always available.
All right, coming over here, second row, Reuters.
Hi, Secretary General.
Hi.
Andrew Gray from Reuters. Secretary Hegseth said that the US's annual dues to NATO will now be contingent on other countries meeting their defence spending targets. And he said when other allies do not spend with urgency, our dues will go down. Isn't that basically collective punishment? And did you push back against that idea at all?
Again, I'm not going to comment on everything has been said today, but more generally speaking, what we are working on very hard is to make sure that the whole of the alliance implements the Hague decisions. What we are seeing at the moment, when you look at the collective, it's there. Again, when you look at the individual countries, there are still some who need to do more and others who are overachieving, which is great, are doing more than Take Germany already reaching the 3.5 and therefore on its way to the 5% already by 2029 instead of 2035. But also when you look at the Baltic countries, when you look at Poland, when you look at others, they are really ahead. Some others are lagging behind a little bit, and we are working hard to make sure they also keep up. So let's prevent a situation like that.
All right, third row towards the center here.
Thank you. Thomas Kutschka with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Secretary General, as the US is reviewing its force posture in Europe, does the alliance need a roadmap moving forward so that the US consults with allies before it actually takes drawdown or decommitment decisions, unlike we've seen with the previous decision? And do you see a risk of dangerous defense gaps, as the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius has said this morning, if there is no synchronizing of this kind? Thank you.
I think Pete Hegseth made quite clear that the US will do this force posture review in close consultation with allies. He was very clear about it. And when it comes to the NATO Force Model, we always knew that there had to be a moment where the US had to create clarity on what they can do in case of a multi-theater situation. And we always knew there was a risk that even the US would then spread its resources too thinly, and that some of what they said they could deliver in case of a conflict would maybe not be there because they also might need it, for example, in the Indo-Pacific. So, and this is exactly why the Supreme Allied Commander was saying yesterday that this change is strengthening NATO's defense plans because they become more resilient, they become more realistic. Yeah, I mean, they will do the review, they will consult with allies. I think that's more or less the definition of a roadmap. But there's still no clarity on exactly what the outcome will be because that will depend on the review. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, just in front of him here in the second row.
Thank you, Secretary General. Given the push for NATO 3.0, how can Ukraine contribute to the allies in Europe delivering on their objectives, including those which Hegseth stressed today?
Well, I think in two ways. One is Ukraine is playing, of course, is gaining so much insight and experience when it comes to the latest technology, because, particularly when it comes to the drone and the counter-drone technology. And I think Ukraine is now #1 in the world on that. They are ahead of Russia, they are ahead of many NATO countries, and we really can learn from Ukraine on this. So this is one area. Another area is that Ukraine has to be so innovative, fighting this war against Russia, staying so clearly ahead of, in terms of Russia not being successful in achieving his war aims, that from that we can learn as NATO when it comes to policies, when it comes to strategies, so that helps us to update our plans. And finally, it is the Ukrainian defense industrial base. So NATO is helping any way we can. We have this joint center in Poland where we capture all the lessons. Still, NATO can teach Ukraine, learn Ukraine one or two things when it comes, for example, to the air domain, but when it comes to particularly drones, it is Ukraine teaching the others. So in all these areas, the defense industrial base, drone technology, the latest insights from the battlefield, we are becoming stronger as NATO, in the meantime helping Ukraine to stay strong in the fight.
All right, coming to the fourth row here, AFP.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Coming back to Secretary Hegseth's intervention, he arrived this morning, he criticized NATO allies, called them shameful and various other things. He threatened them, essentially blackmailed them to try to get them to spend more on defense. And then he left before he listened to any of their responses. Do you think that really shows the commitment from the US that you said was there? And the fact that he didn't stay to meet President Zelensky, does that show that the US hasn't changed its position on supporting Ukraine after the G7?
He delivered his remarks at 9:30. He left at 11:15. So he was there for almost 2 hours listening to the debate. and acknowledging the contributions of many allies, we knew that he had to leave early because he had prior scheduled commitments. So we knew that, but he was there for almost 2 hours listening to the debate.
All right, fourth row here, the gentleman.
Going thread that microphone.
Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary General. Evgeny Snegov, Russian independent media in exile, ECHO. As we know, there was a large Ukrainian strike on Moscow region this morning. How does NATO evaluate this operation? Thank you.
Yes, we are never commenting on every individual strike or what is happening in the fight between Russia and Ukraine. But more generally speaking, what we are seeing at the moment is that Ukraine is holding the front line. I would not say they're massively regaining territory. There is some net gains, but that's good. It's different from, let's say, 4 or 5 months ago, but at least you could say overall there is more or less a sort of freeze of the front line, small gains by the Ukrainians, and you are more and more successful in what Ukraine is doing with its drones and other tactics they are using to make sure that they degrade the energy infrastructure in Russia, trying to, of course, also to reach the capability of Russia to produce new weaponry, etc. So, and of course, what we are seeing is between 30 and 35,000 Russians killed each month, and that these are really impressive numbers.
All right, going to the cameras now, AP.
Hello, Mark from Associated Press. Mr. Secretary General, can you tell us how you're going to help the Americans do their audit of each individual ally? Because you already have a trove of data with each ally's defense spending. It wasn't long ago we were here for a press conference where you talked about last year's defense spending. So I assume you have current information. Tell us how you're going to help with that process. And then also, can you help me understand what exactly do dues to NATO pay for? Is that paying for the building, the upkeep of the building, the staff salaries, or is it for military equipment? Thank you.
Well, NATO, of course, is a complicated organization, but very effective when it comes to it. And that means that there are various ways how allies make sure that they pay for their own military what they need, but also to make sure that we can keep the central organization going. But when it comes to your first question, obviously this process has to start, and wherever we can be helpful, we will be helpful. This will be done in close consultation with allies. There is no preset outcome, so this is really to say, hey, Europe and Canada stepping up, doing so much more. Let's review US force posture in that light and see how we can be, as US, maximum effective when it comes to the conventional defense of Europe. Yeah, I mean, this process now, of course, has to be sketched out, more detailed, but wherever we can, we will help, obviously.
All right, second row in the very center. Wait for the mic, please.
Thank you,
Alison. Sir.
Thank you, Secretary General. Anton Trigup, Ost-West TV channel. We are based in Germany, and a lot of voices in Germany, including the Defense Secretary Boris Pistorius, saying that Russia might attack NATO countries by 2029. How does it correspond with the fact that Russia is obviously getting weaker on the battlefield? And the second question is, since Russia's getting weaker, do you expect some concessions from Vladimir Putin or further escalation? Thank you.
Yeah, when it comes to the second question, obviously Putin one day has got to take a decision whether he wants to play ball or not. And Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and Marco Rubio, they're all working hard to get that peace process going. I really want to thank them for that. It was President Trump breaking the deadlock with Putin last year, February, directly dialoguing. I think that was also crucial because he was the only one who could do that. But in the end, the question is whether Putin wants to play ball, whether he really wants to participate in talks. And in the meantime, we have to do everything to make sure Ukraine stays as strong as possible in the fight. So that's what we are working on. And when you look at Russia more generally, don't forget the latest numbers you can see from Russia coming is that they spent, it was 40%, now it is 48% of all the state budget is now spent on defense, 48%. That means that from the tax income Moscow is getting, about 75% of the tax income is now spent on defense. These are crazy numbers. So we cannot be naive about Russia. At the same time, Russia is not bigger than Belgium and the Netherlands combined. And they know we are very strong as NATO, and they know they cannot win from us. So we will do everything to make sure that they understand that it would be their biggest mistake if they would try.
So why is the date 2029?
Well, this is open sources from various intelligence agencies over Europe saying that it is their assessment that they could be ready, being strong enough by that time, and we have to make sure that we are stronger today, and that we are also stronger tomorrow, stronger in 27 and in 29 and in 31, so that they know it's better not to try it.
Okay, we have time for one or two more questions. We'll go to the fourth row here.
Hi, I'm Venera from Kosovo, and I will ask you if do you see Kosovo getting closer to NATO in the future? What should Kosovo do to make that happen? Or if NATO support Kosovo security force to become a full army? Thank you.
Well, clearly, Kosovo is an important partner, but you also know that there are various countries not yet recognizing Kosovo, so in that sense, there is that complication. But I think in the meantime, what is more important is that we do everything to make sure that KFOR is as strong as possible. As you know, it's our assessment that the security situation in Kosovo has continued to improve over the last couple of years. That's why the decision has been made to go back to the pre-2023 levels when it comes to KFOR in size. It's now about 4,700, and the pre-2023 levels, depending on circumstances, it will mean that KFOR will still be considerably in size, between 3,000 and 3,500. Of course, working on basis of the current legal framework.
Okay, staying in the fourth row here on the aisle.
Hello, my name is Asako Funafusa.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The Asahi Shimbun from Japan. I'm going to ask about the Finland decision. Just yesterday, as you know, in Finland Parliament, the governmental proposal of amending the Nuclear Energy Act just approved. What is your reaction to Finland as one of the important NATO allies?
Well, I think it was an historic decision made by the Finnish Parliament yesterday. And today also the defense minister mentioned it. And I said, hey, this is really historic. And it means that Finland takes this step. And I can only take note of that respectfully, because in the end, this is up to every individual ally to decide how they want to work on these issues. And it's not for me to comment, obviously. But me saying it is an historic decision means that I'm not entirely without emotion about it, but also holding back a little bit on commenting too much. Because in the end, these are sovereign national decisions.